Hello everyone. For those that missed my introduction to Shriva, my name is Alaric Fisher from the Department of Parks, Environment and Water Security. During this webinar, we've heard presentations from the project leaders from most of the baseline studies that make up the Beetaloo Shriva. I hope you found them interesting and informative. I will finish the webinar with a brief wrap-up of the outputs from the Shriva. I think it is worth emphasising what an enormous piece of work the Shriva was, and I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of the many people involved in delivering it. On your screen is a nice graphic that summarises a few interesting statistics from the Shriva. For example, the teams undertaking the terrestrial biodiversity surveys spent over 15,000 person-hours in the field. The water and ecology teams collectively drove over 36,000 kilometres collecting data in the region. 23 new watering monitoring bores were drilled to fill in gaps in our groundwater data, which involved over 3,000 metres of vertical drilling. CSIRO teams doing the mobile surveys for greenhouse gases drove over 14,000 kilometres collecting that air quality data. The social and cultural and economic study teams consulted over 200 people in the region. So what are the Shriva outputs? Each of the baseline studies for the Shriva has produced a written report, or in some cases, a number of reports covering different aspects of their studies. In fact, there are 46 individual technical reports and appendices covering the full scope of the Shriva. These are all available to the public on the Shriva website. All of the Shriva studies have been summarised and synthesised in a regional report. This is also available on the web and is probably the easiest way for most members of the community to access the wealth of information produced by the Shriva. Key aspect of the Shriva is transparency of data and information. The Shriva generated and collected a large amount of diverse data. We've constructed a data management system to store or link to all of that and make it searchable and accessible. The Shriva data catalogue is also available on the website and can be used to access not only each of the Shriva reports, but also the raw data and information that underlies them. There are instructions for using the catalogue on the website. It's worth noting that the Shriva did not occur in isolation, and there are other important sources of information about the Beetaloo region and the potential risks from hydraulic fracturing and the development of an onshore gas industry. The scientific inquiry, of course, scrutinised these risks in great detail. It also used the Beetaloo as an example region, and so contains a lot of specific examples from that area. There was also a major body of work carried out by the Commonwealth Government through its Geological and Bioregional Assessment Program, or GBA. This program examined 3 prospective gas basins in Australia, but had a strong focus on the Beetaloo region. Most of that work occurred between 2018 and 2020, so between the inquiry and the Shriva. The GBA program included a geological and environmental baseline assessment of each gas basin and a very detailed impact assessment specific to each region. The scope of the GBA program was more limited than the Shriva because it focuses on areas of interest to the Commonwealth under its legislation. However, it does provide a lot of useful information, particularly about geology and groundwater, and this has been incorporated into the Shriva findings. All of the GBA reports are also publicly available on the web. The Shriva findings are synthesised in the regional report, and I would encourage people to have a look at that. Looking at all the data and information collected through the Shriva overall, I would say that these do not raise any red flags, in the sense that we did not identify any major new risks from onshore gas development, additional to those that have already been identified and extensively examined by both the inquiry and the Beetaloo GBA impact assessment. That is not to say that there are no risks. The Shriva, however, provides the detailed data and understanding that is required to ensure that the various real risks can be properly assessed mitigated and managed. Not surprisingly, the strongest emergent theme from multiple Schreiber studies was the importance of water in the landscape, and that is in relation to biological, cultural, and economic values. Areas of high environmental value in the Beetaloo region are mostly associated with ecosystems that depend on either groundwater or surface water. And this is mirrored by the cultural and economic importance of these water resources and water places. Most, but not all, of the water places occur around the margins of the broader study area and can be protected through the enhanced regulatory regime now in place after the inquiry's recommendations have been implemented. To illustrate the distribution of some of the values associated with water places, on your screen is shown a figure from Chapter 10 of the Regional Report, which shows the distribution of areas of outstanding and high environmental value based on the Schreiber ecology studies. The areas of particularly high value are concentrated around Mataranka and the Upper Roper River, the north of the Beetaloo Basin, and around Lake Woods and Longreach Waterhole to the south of the subbasin. There are some high value sites associated with waterholes and aquatic refugia scattered throughout the Beetaloo subbasin itself. And although it's hard to make out on the slide, there are some high value vegetation types, particularly those that are likely to be groundwater dependent ecosystems, primarily along the northeastern edge of the study area. Just to return to this slide for a moment, one of the key community concerns about onshore gas is the use of groundwater resources. As you heard during the water presentation, there is now a very large body of data and research findings relating to groundwater resources in the Beetaloo region, and this will feed into water allocation plans to manage sustainable groundwater use into the future. Having said that there are no red flags, it's important to recognise that a key finding from the social and cultural baseline studies was that there continues to be a low level of community trust in the gas industry to adhere to best practice and in the government's ability to regulate the industry effectively. The social and cultural study found that ongoing communication with all stakeholders in the region and community involvement in planning for future development was a strong and recurring theme. The study also made a number of recommendations about how trust could be built over time, and it is clear that this needs to be an ongoing process. So how will the Schreiber data and findings be applied going forward? It is clear that we now have a very large amount of information about the Beetaloo region. With the Schreiber GBA program and some other recent scientific studies, there has been around $30 million invested in data collection in the Beetaloo since the inquiry. This provides a very comprehensive information base for government and regulators to do robust risk assessment in relation to any onshore gas development proposals in the future, including assessing potential cumulative impacts. The Schreiber itself did not redo the thorough risk assessments that had previously been done by the inquiry and the GBA program. However, the Schreiber report recognised that GBA developed a systematic framework for assessing regional scale risks from gas development specific to the Beetaloo region, and the report makes some recommendations to further develop that risk assessment tool to incorporate all the additional information collected through Schreiber. It's also important to note that information collection shouldn't just stop now that Schreiber is completed. In particular, Schreiber provides a sound baseline for a regional monitoring framework for the Beetaloo, which will be very important should a large-scale gas industry develop. Such a regional monitoring program would include both biophysical indicators such as water quality and a long-term participatory social impact monitoring program involving the local community. So I'm going to finish there. I hope you found this webinar useful, and I would like to thank all the presenters for their time and the comms team that pulled it together. I encourage everyone to have a look at the Schreiber website and explore the wealth of information that's available there. Thank you.